What's going on, guys? Something I've been wanting to do for a while now is start covering some of the coverage of some of the online hat format tournaments that go on. Usually, there's anywhere from 1 to 3 of the bigger hat format tournaments online that occur. Usually, you can find a lot of this information on formatlibrary.com. I'm not affiliated with them in any sort of way, but they do usually hold some hat format tournaments. Usually, I guess I should say it's held through the hat format Discord, but Format Library shows off some of the top deck lists and a breakdown of some of the information. And so I just wanted to start going over some of the topping deck profiles and just kind of cover some of the decks so you can get an idea of what decks are topping, cool tech choices that are popping up, and different things like that. The three main tournaments they usually hold are the Exciton Elimination, I believe it's called Pleiades Payout, and then the bigger of the three is the Moral Tack Monthly, which usually gets a pretty good crowd. Recently, actually at the time of recording this, just today, they had posted the new information for their most recent one, which was Exciton Elimination 15. They got, I believe, 24 players. And so I just wanted to go over, like I said, the decks, the breakdowns, and things like that. And I thought this would be a cool thing to do. So if this is the type of video you guys would like to see, definitely let me know in the comment section. Drop a like on this video. And anyways, guys, let's get started on this. So I believe, like I said, there was 24 players. And so the decks that were played in this, we have 5 Geargia, 5 Artifact Trap Tricks, 4 Mermail, 2 Infernity, 1 Battling Boxer, 1 Madolche, 1 Cyber Dragon Artifact, 1 Fire Fist Trap Tricks, 1 Artifact Ghost Trick, 1 Hieratic Ruler, 1 Sylvan, and 1 Bujin. So pretty diverse. Looking at this, it's kind of interesting. There's no Spellbook, which is pretty interesting in my opinion. I think Spellbook is definitely a very solid deck, so it's kind of strange to not see that at all. There's definitely a lot of decks in the format, so like that's not the biggest surprise to me in general, because, you know, if you look at these numbers, a lot of them, the big three right here, Mermail, Artifact Trap Tricks, and Geargia in general are usually the bigger decks that are topping. But outside of that, we look here, and I have the top 3 deck lists for you guys. In first place was Infernity, second place was Mermail, and third place was Bujin. So we are going to get started looking at these lists and see what's up with that. So starting off with the first place, we have Infernity. They played 1 Hyris, 1 Armageddon Knight, 2 Grepher, 1 Dinotherium, 3 Archfiend, 2 Necromancer, the Thrasher, 3 Stygian, 2 Summoner Monk, and 1 Tin Goldfish. So nothing too out of the ordinary. That's a pretty basic Xyz Infernity lineup. Nothing too crazy there. But looking ahead a little bit, I see that they are choosing to main the 3 copies of Vanity's Emptiness. This isn't as common. Some people will choose to play the 3 Emptiness in the main. You guys know probably from watching my videos, I prefer it in the side in most cases, but it's not uncommon. I think I even mentioned that in my deck profile when I showed it off, that some people do choose to main Emptiness just because the deck is very good at putting up, you know, rank 4s and stuff, so you can easily just key beetle lock your opponent and get them out of the game. So that's interesting. Some people will also opt to play like Trap Stun in the main, but my personal preference isn't on that, but obviously, you know, they got first place, so no complaints there. Also, I'm looking down towards the side. I see the 1 copy of Max C. This, the reason they're only playing 1 is my guess would be for when they have Upstart and can go into Lavalval Chain, so they can just stack the 1 copy of Max C post side, and then basically Upstart add it to hand, and that's really good against the combo decks, you know, especially Mermail being second place. Max C is definitely good against that. They're choosing to side the copy of Rhapsody. This deck, you know, can't play hand traps all that well. Like, at least with Max C, you can drop it right away, but having a card like Rhapsody that acts as a crow is nice. They're choosing to side Book of Moon, 2 Chalice, and 2 Lance, so that's something I didn't even notice here. They're siding the Lances over maining them, which I guess that's fair, especially if they're playing Vanity's Emptiness in the main. That means that they have less spell and trap card zones to actually set. So, if they're seeing MSTs in their starting hand, plus like some of these other back row, you definitely don't want to clog too much on these. Like if you see MST, you can pop your own back row, but you don't want to rely on that necessarily. And Chalice is just a great going second card, especially against artifacts if a deck like this really needs their stuff to go through. Same with Lance, making sure you can get past opponents' breakthrough skills and stuff is great. Mind control is pretty normal in the side. 2 copies of Night Beam. I actually like this, especially knowing that Mermail got second. That's really cool because you can just kind of snipe their Abyss Spheres and then they can't chain to it, so that's really nice. And kind of similar situation with the Spiritualisms in the side. Now, this is a card I really like. This is Tyrant's Tummy Ache. I wanted to make a separate video to actually talk about the Tyrant's cards eventually, but they actually did have 2 copies of this. If you don't know what this card does, basically you tribute a monster and then neither player can summon level 6 or special summon level 6 or higher monsters. So that's really cool. That's great against Mermail, Sylvans, any of those decks, Dragon Rulers that can summon really high level monsters. The one downside to this card is I think it's if you have 3 or more cards in hand, then this gets destroyed or sent to the graveyard. But this is Infernity, so obviously the whole idea is to have no cards in hand. So this is such a cool tech card to lock out the opponent. So I really like that. Moving on to the extra deck, I'm not really seeing anything too out of the ordinary. 2 Direwolf is pretty standard. A lot of people do like the double Exciton. Double Lavalval Chain is fine. Double, all this is pretty standard. So in general, very interesting list with obviously the Vanities in the main and the Tyrants and stuff. Very solid deck. Again, it's pretty standard in the main for the most part in terms of like it's nothing out of the ordinary. The side deck is pretty nice though. Moving on though to the second place, we have the Mermail list. And right away, I see these, the Aqua Spirits, which isn't really played as much. I believe it was played a format or 2 prior to Hat a lot more. It's just a free special summon. And so it also, I think, switches battle position. So it's kind of cool to see that right off the bat as just a level 4 extender. The other thing I'm noticing here is they're maxing out on the Atlanteans, and this makes sense right away because of the Dragon Ice. Dragon Ice, when your opponent special summons a monster, you can discard a water monster and special summon it. And so that does trigger the Atlanteans, so it's a way to kind of have a body on board as well as interruption for the opponent. The other thing I'm noticing right away, there's a couple, there's so much going on with this list, oh my gosh. So the other thing I'm noticing is the copy of Gold Sark. And so you play Gold Sark obviously because you can Gold Sark the title, and the title will then trigger and search the Dragon Ice. So you already instantly have the ability to interact with your opponent, basically turn 0 in a sense if you open this, or on your turn 3 or whatever, your opponent's turn 3, to interact if you do see that. The other interesting thing here that I'm noticing, besides like obviously maining the 3 Max C, which isn't super uncommon, is they opted out of playing the Gen X package. So there's no Undyne or controllers, which is very interesting too, because usually when people play Dragon Ice, they do play the Gen X cards, because if you special summon the Dragon Ice and have a controller, you can go into a copy of Beals, and Beals is obviously a very strong card that is hard to out. So seeing that that's not in this deck is actually extremely interesting. They're also choosing to play the Salvage, which makes a lot of sense in this deck, especially when you're maxing out on the Atlanteans here. It's a really cool card. I've kind of been in between on this card, but I do like seeing when people top with it because it is a very interesting card. Other than that, 2 copies of Soul Charge. Some people, I've seen this a little bit more. I don't know how I feel about 2 versus 3, but in this deck, when it's so much more discard reliant, especially because I see that they are playing the double Megalo and the copy of Abyss Lead, so this deck does discard more than I'd say the average Mermail deck, so the 3 copies of Salvage does make sense. Moving on to the side deck, I don't see anything too out of the ordinary. Maybe the Malevolent Catastrophes, especially for other reasons, but in general, this deck, Mermail does sometimes have problems with certain back row, especially post side with different floodgate type things. But even then, if you're playing so many Atlanteans, this, it seems a little overboard, but I get it. So that's kind of cool. Moving on though, looking at the extra deck, nothing too out of the ordinary. Maybe like double Honor Arc is interesting, but again, it's nothing too wild. I'm trying to see no synchros, obviously, so that I guess is the most interesting part of the extra deck, but I guess that kind of reminds me of how there's been a couple Sylvan decks, I even like made a profile on it, that don't play the synchro packages. So this is kind of, I guess, the same sort of concept. So I do actually, it's a solid list. It's interesting, it's very unique, but that's all I can really say for that. And moving on to the third place deck list, we have the Bujin deck list. They are playing 1 copy of Harume, 1 Mikazuchi, 3 Yamato, 3 Crane, 2 Hare, oh, they're doing this, which I like, the 2 Crow and the 3 Max C. I've talked about, I did a deck profile a while back, and I talked about how I wanted to make room for Crows. Just in general, I think Crow is one of the best hand traps you can play, and I just like, in general, how many hand traps, because the Cranes are hand traps, and then, you have your Honest and stuff. So I do like this monster lineup a lot. They're maining the Dark Hole, which makes sense because this deck, can be a little normal summon reliant. So being able to play through some of the more combo decks, going second is nice. 2 Lance, 3 Upstart, nothing too crazy here. It actually seems very, straightforward. Looking down here, they're siding the 3rd Crow. I always like to see them playing the extra ratios there. 3 MST, this is very common in the side deck for Bujins. The 1 Twister, that's, Light Mirror is a problem as well as other things, so that is just an extra copy of MST. And, ooh, DNA Surgery. This, I get what they're going with here. This is very spicy. So the thing is the Bujin monsters, like, say, like, the hares and stuff, or the, I forget the name, Quillen, is they have to specifically banish, wall, or say protect the monster that is a Bujin Beast Warrior. So I think if I had to guess, what they're going for here is siding these in against, say, like a deck like Spellbook or something, even though it wasn't in this tournament, that they would change the typing to Beast Warrior, and then say they had something like a Crane, it's a, a Bujin monster, I guess, in theory, or I'm pretty sure these would count as Bujin monsters. So you would be able to have like a random one of these, like say just summon a hare, and then if you had a Quillen engrave, you could banish it and pop a face-up card because it's considered a Beast Warrior Bujin. I'm pretty sure that's how that works, because like Yamato can search these and these are Bujin cards. So that's really cool. Double debunk, very standard. The double needle ceiling, that's, also nothing too crazy, because again, against those combo decks, Dragon Rulers and things, even against, Mermail, for example, or Infernity that just puts up a big board, this is a great card to just kind of break that. 2 wiretap, yeah, I guess going first, just more back row removal is always nice, or like countering back row is nice, especially seeing, there was that Mermail deck. Again, keep going back to that, but this is great against Sphere and stuff. And then looking at the extra deck, they are playing the Constellar Omega, and it looks like they aren't playing the Bujin Tsukiyomi, the one that discards your hands and draw 2. So that's pretty common, I guess, to swap that out for it. But I also see that they are playing both Paladynamo, Heartland Draco, which makes sense because of the Tenkis, and the Crazy Box. So I guess they also kind of had a fear of skill drain, and just in general, it's a big body. But other than that, nothing too crazy, I guess, here. Yeah, they were playing the Kagetsuchi. So very, very interesting, but overall, I'd say this might be the most standard deck out of all of them, or I guess maybe Infernity is too. It really just came down to side decks, but again, those are the top 3 from this event. I want to start, like I said, covering more of these type of events when they hold them. I wanted to wait till the new year though to actually start going over these just because, new year, new concept of videos going on. So let me know what you guys think if you want me to start doing more videos like this, just going over the whole event. I think it would be really cool to give you guys some insight into the more competitive scene online, and also for anyone who wants to actually play in these, which I get questions all the time, just make sure to join the hat format Discord. I'm personally not in it at the moment, but just because I don't have Discord, I'm really bad with technology and I'm trying to get better with it. But in general, yeah, check that out and let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it. Comment any questions or ideas for videos you want to see in the future. Share this video with your friends. It's something different. And yeah, make sure you're subscribed, all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next video.